Hello everyone and welcome to the tavern, and a happy new year! Of course it's the beginning of the year, so of course we have another Hasbro Wizards of the Coast complete debacle to deal with. Honestly, this just seems like the beginning of another bad year for both these companies. The lengths to which Hasbro will go in order to make a buck is getting more and more pathetic, and the dilution of the Dungeons & Dragons brand is more and more pitiful with every single announcement. But before we get into this main story, I want to give a little bit of background for those who haven't been keeping up with all the drama that has been occurring with Wizards of the Coast. First of all, there's been plenty of usage of AI art in recent times. They have gotten in trouble multiple times for advertisements they have done that featured AI art in the designs. A company that hires as many artists as they do might actually have artists who could do nice advertisements, but instead we have AI-produced ones, which are followed with Wizards of the Coast apologizing, taking it down, and saying it'll never happen again. You can only do it so many times before people catch on to the fact that it's gonna happen again. In addition to that, Bigsby Presents Glory of the Giants had some AI art inside it, which they had to remove and replace before the release of the book, and it is completely possible that other books have snuck in some AI art that just hasn't been as heavily reported. And then of course, the current boss of Wizards of the Coast and the CEO of Hasbro have been talking about how they're looking forward to implementing AI in order to improve the game, because AI DMs is such a great idea. In fact, I've experimented with a couple of them and have found they're completely useless and are not prepared for any kind of left turns, which, let's face facts, players love to do. Secondly, last year they got in trouble for plagiarism of art. Strange how a lot of these problems are stemming from the art side of things. The strange part was the person they plagiarized used to do art for Wizards of the Coast. Go figure. Odds are, it'll end up just being settled out of court so that WotC doesn't have to have more news stories about their terrible practices and hiring artists who steal from other artists. And then of course, the big one that started up last year was their epic monetization of everything. Not only was their special 50th edition minis designed as a randomized blind box, even if you bought one of the full sets of boxes, you would not collect every single figure in the set, meaning you'd have to buy 2 or more depending on how many dupes you got in the entire process. To continue this process, they have also started doing major work towards digitizing the entirety of D&D to make it that you have to buy D&D online via microtransactions in order to actually play the game with your friends, unless you're a typical D&D player, in which case you probably have some old books, hopefully some good friends, and you don't need WotC's terrible online services, nor any of the microtransactions they'll try to shove down your throat. So what actually happened? Well, as it turns out, Hasbro has made a deal with Games Global. They're a company that specializes in iGaming. What is iGaming? Why, that's internet gambling. Yeah, online casinos. Because Hasbro, a brand that primarily caters to children and collectors, licensed out their products to become online slot machines. The first one that's going to be coming out is Dungeons & Dragons Tales of Riches, which is done by Neon Valley Studios. Not that it matters what studio is producing this, but according to Hasbro, it'll have a lot of interactive elements and be super totally awesome. According to everyone else, this feels like a cheap cash grab, and why would anyone go to an online casino to play this game? To make matters worse, this is a multi-game deal. So if you think having only one Hasbro-based online slot machine was too much, well guess what? We are going to see several more being produced over the course of this deal. It should be noted that there has been a D&D themed slot machine in the past. It was based off of the 80s cartoon. However, that does not excuse the fact that this is an online slot machine, making it much more predatory than a standard one. What bothers me even more about this is there are enough people online who will go, "Ooh, Dungeons & Dragons slot machine," and give it a try. Though I hope you, dear viewer, are far too savvy to be taken in by such frivolous things. The one good part about this is that the online fandom is quite angry about this. Well, some of them are, and others are facepalming. Generally, I agree with many of the people who talk about how this is just diluting the brand even further, making Dungeons & Dragons less about Dungeons & Dragons and more about monetization or about cheap cash grab products. It's not like slot machines based on IP don't already exist. If you've gone to Las Vegas or whatever your favorite local casino city is, you will see Tarzan, Star Trek, Wheel of Fortune, and more. But the thing is, it always comes off very cringy. There are many types of IP pasted onto something else that's generally considered fine. No one really blinks at a Addams Family, Jurassic Park, or Batman-themed pinball machine. But the big thing is, this is not a standard, I could go to my local casino and find this Dungeons & Dragons machine. This is part of an online casino, which always come off very skeevy. There's something just dirtier about the online version of gambling than the real-life version of gambling. It's even worse when you consider the fact that Hasbro has a multi-game deal. Now, it's possible all of this will be Dungeons & Dragons, but odds are it'll be using other Hasbro IP. So we'll probably see something featuring Transformers, Magic the Gathering, My Little Pony, or any number of the other IPs that Hasbro owns. Monopoly, G.I. Joe, I could go on. Something about that feels more dirty. Like, hey, these brands we use to represent various toys that have a very young demographic, well, hey, once you're done using those toys, grow up and go to the casino and spend all your money on some rigged online slot machine. Thanks, Hasbro. Thanks for keeping that whole family-friendly, let's just make toys for kids attitude. Oh, wait, no, you lost that years ago. Frankly, this whole thing just makes me want to facepalm. I do like the fact that there's backlash for this, but at the same time, this feels like something that we all should have seen coming. The bigger worry is, when does Magic the Gathering get involved in online gambling? People betting on matches, things like that. How much longer until these kind of mechanics are brought into the online versions of various Hasbro existing games? As there's already Monopoly Go, Trivial Pursuit Infinite, and of course, online Dungeons & Dragons stuff they keep hinting at with AI DMs. We're going to be finding that Hasbro is going to sink lower and lower in their vain attempt to gain profits as the rest of their products sell worse and worse. This is obviously not the kind of story Hasbro should have started the year with, because it already puts a bad taste into everyone's mouth with whatever other announcements they have coming up, because we know how low they'll go just to make a buck. It's also sad to see just how far they will squeeze the juice out of the various IPs they own, because when we get to something like online casinos, we're hitting the bottom of the barrel. I shouldn't say that, because if I actually put my mind to it, I'm sure I could come up with things worse than online casinos. I just don't want to think about it. What we do know is that this is the tip of the iceberg for bad stories coming out of Hasbro this year. If you're going to begin with online gambling, we're going to be getting worse and worse as the months progress. And I will be there to cover it and to give you my 2 cents, because when it comes down to it, we need to fight the good fight. And we do that by letting people know about the bad business practices of Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. We do that by supporting independent game developers and toy companies that deserve our money. We do that by voting with our wallet and standing against these kinds of practices. Keep fighting, because you know what? If they have to sink to this level, we know we're winning. But enough from me, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Hasbro getting into the iGaming market? Tell me in the comments, because I'm really curious about how many others out there are feeling as disgusted as I am. Until next time, as I always say, fight the good fight, because they win when we give up. And until next time, remember, I'll see you at the tavern.